December 21, 1992, East Lampeter Township, Pennsylvania. Christy Mirack, 25, a beloved teacher, never made it to school. Her townhouse, usually filled with quiet morning routines, erupted in horror when neighbors reported screams. First responders arrived to a scene frozen in terror. Christy beaten, strangled, and sexually assaulted. A wooden cutting board discarded nearby. For decades, the question lingered: who could commit such a brutal act, and why did justice evade her for so long? 25 years later, a breakthrough in forensic DNA would unravel the mystery, exposing a killer hidden in plain sight. Christy Mirack was more than a teacher. She was a vibrant presence in her community. At 25, she lived in a quiet townhouse in East Lampeter Township, Pennsylvania, sharing her home with a roommate and preparing for her days at Smoketown Elementary School, where she inspired young minds. On that fateful morning of December 21, 1992, she had followed her usual routine, getting ready for work, slipping on her coat and gloves, unaware of the danger approaching. By 7:10 a.m., neighbors reported hearing a high-pitched, chilling scream, a sound that would echo through the community for decades. When authorities arrived, the scene was gruesome. Christy's body lay partially clothed on the living room floor, evidence of a violent struggle scattered nearby. She had been beaten, strangled, and sexually assaulted. A wooden cutting board, likely used as a weapon, was found near her. Forensic pathologists documented severe trauma: bruising across her neck, back, and upper chest, a fractured jaw, and other blunt force injuries. Every detail painted the picture of a brutal, intimate attack, yet no suspect could be identified at the time. Despite exhaustive investigative efforts, the case remained cold for more than 2 decades. Multiple agencies, including East Lampeter Township Police, Pennsylvania State Police, and the FBI, examined leads, questioned dozens of suspects, and tested evidence, but nothing pointed conclusively to the killer. The DNA collected from Christy's body was entered into national databases in the early 2000s, yet it produced no matches. For years, the case became a haunting reminder of justice delayed, leaving Christy's family and friends in agonizing uncertainty. In 2016, Lancaster County detectives took over the investigation. Modern technology offered new hope. The preserved DNA was submitted to Parabon Nanolabs, experts in forensic genetic genealogy. Using the latest genome sequencing, they created a profile of the unknown suspect, including a predicted appearance and ancestral background. The results were groundbreaking. The DNA profile, when cross-referenced with public genealogy databases, identified relatives of the killer, leading investigators to a strong, viable suspect: Raymond Rowe, known in entertainment circles as DJ Freez. A careful, surreptitious collection of his DNA later confirmed the match, providing irrefutable evidence connecting him to Christy's murder. The story of Christy Mirack is not only a tale of tragedy, but of relentless pursuit, decades-long dedication, and the remarkable power of modern forensic science. It is a journey that transforms unanswered questions into justice, proving that even after decades, the truth cannot be silenced. The initial investigation into Christy Mirack's death began on a cold December morning in 1992, when a school staff member arrived at Smoketown Elementary to find Christy absent. Concern quickly escalated. Her roommate confirmed that Christy had left home that morning around 7 a.m., just moments after getting ready for her usual routine. But by the time neighbors heard the chilling scream between 7:10 and 7:20 a.m., something terrible had already occurred. First responders arrived at the townhouse in East Lampeter Township to find her partially clothed, lifeless on the living room floor, evidence of a struggle strewn around her. A wooden cutting board lay nearby, likely used in the attack.
Forensic pathologists immediately began documenting the scene. Christy had endured a violent assault, blunt force trauma to the face, neck, upper chest, and back, a fractured jaw, bruising that told the story of a struggle for her life, and clear evidence of strangulation. Sexual assault had also occurred. Investigators meticulously collected swabs and samples, understanding that this microscopic evidence might be the only clue that could identify her killer. Yet, in 1992, DNA technology was still in its infancy. Despite the careful collection, investigators had little they could do to connect the evidence to a suspect. The police canvassed the neighborhood, interviewing her roommate and neighbors who had heard the scream. Witnesses described nothing more than fleeting shadows and indistinct sounds. No one had seen a vehicle or anyone fleeing the scene. Officers followed leads on local suspects, questioning known sex offenders, acquaintances, and anyone with a criminal history, but nothing pointed directly to the perpetrator. Over the following weeks, detectives pursued over 80 tips and interviewed more than 20 potential suspects, but each trail ended in frustration.
Investigators soon realized the attack had been deliberate and personal. The level of violence and the presence of sexual assault indicated the killer had premeditated intent, striking quickly and decisively while Christy was preparing for her day. The proximity of the crime to her home and the lack of forced entry suggested someone familiar with the area or someone who had watched her routine had chosen this moment to strike. Police theorized that the attacker had likely planned the timing carefully, confronting Christy as she was about to leave, overpowering her in the brief window before neighbors could intervene. Despite the meticulous investigative work, no leads developed into a tangible suspect. Multiple agencies were involved: the East Lampeter Township Police Department, Pennsylvania State Police, and the FBI all examined evidence, reviewed reports, and interviewed potential witnesses. Yet the DNA collected from Christy's body, while preserved, did not yield any matches in the national databases of the time. Frustration mounted, not only for the detectives, but also for her family and friends, who were left without answers, wondering who had brutally taken her life. For decades, the case sat in cold case files, a haunting reminder of the limits of 1990s forensic science. Investigators revisited the crime scene photos, evidence logs, and autopsy reports, but the lack of technology meant that the killer remained elusive. It became a story of unanswered questions. Who had the opportunity and the intent? How had the perpetrator known Christy's routine? And most importantly, why? This cold, unanswered tragedy continued to cast a shadow over the community of East Lampeter Township. Yet the painstaking collection of DNA evidence, though initially inconclusive, became the key that would eventually unlock the case decades later. Every swab, every sample preserved in 1992 would one day hold the answer that the investigators at the time could only hope for: a breakthrough that would finally provide justice for Christy Mirack.
Decades later, in 2016, the investigation into Christy Mirack's murder gained new life when Lancaster County detectives took jurisdiction of the cold case. DNA evidence collected in 1992, meticulously preserved but untouched by modern technology, became the key. Detectives partnered with Parabon Nanolabs, a cutting-edge forensic genetics company, to analyze the microscopic evidence that had long lain dormant. Using advanced DNA phenotyping, Parabon scientists reconstructed a detailed composite of the killer, predicting physical features including hair color, eye color, and skin tone. For the first time, investigators could visualize the suspect, not just as an unknown shadow, but as a real human being. The laboratory then generated a genotype file and uploaded it to a public genetic genealogy database. This step, combining science and ancestry, revealed relatives of the perpetrator, creating a network of investigative leads previously unimaginable. C. Moore, Parabon's renowned genealogist, traced the familial connections, narrowing the field to a single strong candidate, Raymond Rowe, also known in public life as DJ Freez. To confirm the match, detectives collected DNA surreptitiously from Rowe using discarded items at one of his DJ events. When the sample was tested against the DNA recovered from Christy's body and the townhouse carpet, the results were irrefutable. The statistical probability of the match being anyone other than Rowe was astronomically low, 1 in 200 octillion for the Caucasian population. After more than 2 decades of dead ends and cold leads, science had spoken. The same DNA that had eluded investigators in 1992 now painted a vivid and damning portrait of the killer. Rowe, once an invisible threat, was finally unmasked, giving long overdue clarity to a case that had haunted families, investigators, and the community for over 25 years.
Once Raymond Rowe emerged as the prime suspect, Lancaster County detectives meticulously retraced his connections and movements from 1992. Investigators scoured past reports, revisited witness statements, and cross-checked timelines, piecing together the hours leading up to Christy's last morning. Officers interviewed neighbors who had heard the early morning screams, co-workers, and even acquaintances of Rowe, aiming to reconstruct his activities on that fateful day. Physical evidence remained central. The wooden cutting board found near Christy's body, the swabs taken from her person, and the carpet beneath her were submitted to forensic labs for further scrutiny. Each sample underwent painstaking analysis, confirming what detectives had long suspected: the presence of unknown male DNA on multiple locations tied directly to the crime scene. These findings, combined with the DNA phenotype composite and genealogical leads, narrowed the scope of the investigation with unprecedented precision. Detectives also coordinated with the Pennsylvania State Police and the FBI to trace Rowe's known history, including prior arrests and patterns of escalating predatory behavior. Surveillance of Rowe's public appearances, particularly at DJ events, where he used the alias DJ Freez, provided opportunities to collect additional DNA discreetly, without alerting him to the ongoing investigation. Every detail, no matter how minor, was cataloged and cross-referenced, from his professional connections to the layout of the East Lancaster Township neighborhood. The detectives built a comprehensive picture that linked Rowe to Christy Mirack both physically and circumstantially. It was a culmination of years of persistence, methodical documentation, and the careful integration of modern forensic technology with traditional investigative methods. By combining DNA evidence, witness testimony, and the reconstructed timeline, Lancaster County detectives solidified a case that would ultimately lead to Rowe's arrest and finally deliver justice for Christy.
Raymond C. Rowe, 49 at the time of his arrest, known professionally as DJ Freez, had lived near Christy Mirack in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. His proximity to Christy added an unsettling layer of familiarity to the crime, highlighting how tragedy can sometimes strike in one's own community. While Rowe's earlier offenses were primarily nonviolent, burglary, drug possession, and an attempted kidnapping in 1981, they painted a picture of a man increasingly drawn to risky behavior and encounters with the law. Reports indicate he exhibited a troubling fixation on women, which, when paired with his opportunistic tendencies, created the conditions for a premeditated act of violence. Despite these past infractions, there was no prior record linking Rowe to violent crimes like the murder of Christy. His professional persona as DJ Freez, operating an entertainment company, offered a veneer of normalcy, masking the darker impulses that investigators would later uncover. This dichotomy between his outwardly harmless life and the horrific crime committed underscores a chilling reality. Danger can often hide behind the familiar, within communities that otherwise seem safe. Rowe's actions on the morning of December 21, 1992, suggest careful planning and opportunism. Christy, preparing for her day as a teacher, was confronted in her own home, violence intruding upon an otherwise ordinary morning. Investigators surmise that Rowe selected his moment strategically, exploiting both opportunity and Christie's routine to carry out an attack that was sudden, brutal, and meticulously executed. Understanding Rowe's background, habits, and past behaviors was crucial in contextualizing the murder. While his prior offenses were minor, they revealed patterns of risk-taking and predatory attention towards women, elements that, when combined with the forensic evidence, helped detectives build a comprehensive portrait of a suspect who was methodical, dangerous, and disturbingly familiar to his victim. By the spring of 2023, after decades of unanswered questions and painstaking investigation, Lancaster County detectives were ready to move. Raymond Rowe, known in the entertainment world as DJ Freez, had become the focus of a coordinated effort that spanned years of meticulous evidence gathering. With the DNA link confirmed, showing an overwhelming statistical match to the samples collected from Christie's body and the scene, authorities knew they had irrefutable evidence. On a quiet Monday afternoon, officers quietly approached Rowe's home on Whittier Lane in Lancaster. The weight of decades of tragedy hung heavy as they knocked on the door. Rowe, 49, was taken into custody without incident, unaware that the science and investigative persistence that had silently tracked him for years had finally caught up. Arresting him was not just a procedural step, it was the culmination of an exhaustive quest for justice spanning more than 30 years. Rowe was immediately charged with criminal homicide in the 1992 murder of Christy Mirack, a charge in Pennsylvania that carries no eligibility for bail. District Attorney Craig Stedman emphasized the gravity of the moment, describing the arrest as a major development and a long overdue step toward closure for Christie's family. He reminded the public that, while the arrest marked a pivotal point, the presumption of innocence remained a cornerstone of justice. The legal proceedings were prepared with precision. Prosecutors laid out the chain of evidence, from the preserved DNA samples to the advanced genetic genealogy that had identified Rowe and the surreptitiously obtained DNA confirming his connection to the crime scene. The meticulous investigation, spanning local police, state crime labs, and national forensic experts, was presented as a blueprint of modern cold case resolution. For Christie's loved ones, the arrest was a bittersweet moment, a mix of relief, grief, and the validation of decades of unanswered suffering. The courtroom would later become a stage for presenting the story of relentless detective work, the intersection of science and law, and the unwavering pursuit of justice that, at long last, had placed the man responsible in custody.
With Raymond Rowe in custody and charges formally filed, the focus shifted to the families who had lived in a shadow of uncertainty for over 3 decades. For Christie's parents, colleagues, and friends, the arrest offered something they had long yearned for: validation that the life of their daughter, their friend, their teacher mattered, and that justice was finally within reach. The pain of loss remained, but now it was coupled with the comfort of truth, the knowledge that the person responsible for the brutal attack had been identified. District Attorney Stedman emphasized the long journey from tragedy to accountability, noting that this case exemplified how persistence, modern science, and collaboration across agencies can finally illuminate decades-old mysteries. The story of Christy Mirack was no longer just a cold file. It was a testament to the relentless pursuit of justice, a reminder that time does not erase the importance of truth. For viewers, this case is a powerful example of how advances in DNA technology, forensic genealogy, and unwavering detective work can overcome the most challenging obstacles in criminal investigations. It underscores the critical role that science and dedication play in solving crimes that, for years, seemed beyond resolution. Wherever you are watching from, take a moment to reflect on the resilience of those who never gave up, both the investigators and Christy's loved ones. If this story moved you, made you think, or inspired you to appreciate the value of justice, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into remarkable cold cases and the breakthroughs that bring truth to light. Stay engaged, stay aware, and remember, sometimes justice may be delayed, but with persistence and science, it can never be denied.